Then and then jumping into your presentation. Guys, she's got an awesome presentation. This is all pertinent for all of us today as asset managers. Incredible stuff here. So
Well,
Krista,
a little bit of intro that I could throw for Krista is, first of all, Krista has been uh, a owner and managing partner of Sharpline Equity, together with Chris Jackson, who's also another amazing multifamily investor and syndicator. Krista has been in a background of every single acquisition of multifamily properties that I've witnessed, at least 15 to 20 of them for the last 2, 3 years. She's been analyzing and behind the scene, sometimes as a asset manager, has been doing amazing job. All properties are doing well. And so today she was like my number one go person when it comes to asset management questions. And here we are with Krista. Take the mic.
Thank you. Wow, that's very generous of you. Thank you, guys. Hello, thank you for joining. All right, this is gonna be fun, guys, because I have to tell you, the presentation that I'm giving tonight, a couple of years back, Joseph asked me to give a presentation about asset management. So, I'm about to do a presentation, and the title is called the must-dos. What is it called? Must-dos to successfully operate your property in any market, right? So I actually pulled up my old webinar, and part of what I'm going to be talking about, like the bulk content, we have what's called 6 pillars of asset management, and that hasn't changed. So I'm actually going to go back and go over those pillars, but I am going to be editing basically, because I don't know how many years later. I feel like it's 3 or 4 years later since I did this webinar, and I really have a different perspective than what I had 4 years ago because of what I've gone through in the last 3 to 4 years. And so it's just interesting now because I am going to be saying some things differently than I did 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm going to explain why as well. So let me just see if I can possibly figure out how to do this. Hold on. Can you guys see that screen? Do you see a screen right now that says?
Yep. Yes, Krista,
okay.
We see the screen.
The must-dos. Okay. So let me just see how. Okay, boom. Hold on. All right, there you go. All right. So there are some new people. Actually, there's some very new people because I met them in the breakout room. So I'm going to quickly just introduce myself again, and that's Chris Jackson, my partner. You can see underneath our pictures, that's our background. He's a tech guy. I was an attorney in my past life. So Joseph and we're like, yeah. He's still doing it. I'm definitely not. But we've been in the game for a while, and Chris and I met I want to say 2014, 2015, and we formed Sharpline Equity in 2016. But we had our own history in multifamily up until that point. Then we joined forces, meeting in a networking group, by the way, not so dissimilar from this one. So it's awesome that you guys are doing this, because you will meet people that could potentially one day be your JV or your partners in your company. So we started in 2016, and I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, I'll figure this out. And then just quickly, just to throw up to you, some experience and what we've accomplished so far. Right now, we have 1,262 units. Okay, that makes up about 16 properties. We're actually in contract on our 17th right now this week. We've always syndicated our deals from day one. So we have, I want to say 250 to maybe 300 investors at this point. We've raised about 70 million to date. The current portfolio is worth about 130 million. These are all just high level numbers. In combination of my prior history to Sharpline Equity and then through Sharpline Equity with Chris, we have purchased, operated, and sold 9 multifamily properties at this point. So we've gone through the whole cycle, which has been a great experience. And we've always syndicated our deals since day one. So we've always had investors. And we did not start off, nor I think will I ever be investing in my backyard. I'm in New York. I don't really have any interest in investing in this area. I started investing outside in different markets. My very first multifamily property was in Cincinnati. So we've always, up until very recently, we have always had a third-party manager on the ground managing our properties. So now I have the perspective, and this is why I'm gonna change it up a little bit with things that I'm gonna tell you guys. Because when I first did this webinar, my only experience was having third-party management run the properties in the field, and I was asset managing. Now I have the experience of self-managing. We are now fully integrated 100%. So we have transitioned over to now having Sharpline Communities manage our properties. Okay, that started in July of 2021. So we started taking over and acquiring properties with Sharpline Communities managing, but at the same time, we still had third-party management companies. So when we started the self-management company, we had 4 or 5 properties under with our third-party managers. So basically, we operated for about 2 years in a hybrid position where some of our properties we were self-managing and some were still with third-party management. And that is where the perspective comes in. That is where the new perspective comes in for me, having now dealing with portfolios of properties being managed in those 2 different kind of ways. And it was pretty eye-opening experience. And I'm going to go into it right now. And this is kind of me trying to be funny, even though I don't really have that great of a sense of humor. But I show the Wizard of Oz and the scene where the curtain is being pulled back. That is what it has felt like at this point. When we started to come to a plateau of awareness about, and guys, I'm going to just stop myself right now. I am not in any way, shape, or form want anyone on this phone, this webinar to feel badly about the fact that maybe they're at the point of their careers where they are either thinking about, getting into this and having third-party managers, or they currently have third-party managers. I'm not here to discourage that. But what I'm going to say is I've experienced some perspective now doing it both ways. Do I think self-management is the best way to go? I do, because you have 100% control. Is it always possible? No, it's not. It wasn't possible for us. Number one, we weren't investing in our own backyard, which makes it very difficult to self-manage from a distance. And number two, when we decided to do this, we had multiple properties already, and we knew we couldn't just start self-management. Like their processes need to be developed and systems need to be put in place. And we were doing it with multiple properties at one time. So I lost my train of thought for a second. Give me a second. But ultimately, what I want to express to you is that the things that I've learned right now, you can apply. The listeners here, if you're ever in my position, you can apply what I've learned right now, whether or not you're going to self-manage or you have a third-party management company. I'm just going to focus you guys in on where you need to concentrate your energies and your time and how to build your systems around this stuff. So let me just dig into right now the next screen. I keep going the wrong way. Okay, these were the pillars. The pillars remain the same. Okay, 6 pillars of, I'm putting in parentheses now, asset management, because it's asset management, self-management. It's the same 6 pillars. You're right there. Delinquency, renewal, management, prospective resident marketing, which is just a fancy way of saying, how are you attracting your residents, how are you converting your leads into lease ups and getting them to move in. Community development, reputation management, expense management. This is how I presented the webinar the year that I presented it. And I said, they're all important. They're all equally important. You have to do them all. You have to concentrate your energy on all of them. Yes, they're all important. You do have to do all of them, but I'm going to switch up the order a little bit because there is a priority. And there are some things that that are more important than other things. And I want to kind of give that order of priority. So right now is this next screen, and I've changed the order a little bit, and we're going to talk about each one, but you can see in red, I'm talking about something else first. It's kind of outside the pillars, but I just want to make it very clear about something that everybody should be doing. Those passive investors, passive investors who may never be operating, listen to what I'm saying, because when you're vetting out your operators and you're trying to figure out who you want to partner up with to invest your money in their deals, and you're passive, well, during your vetting process, you get to ask questions and get to know who's operating your buildings, right? Well, here's things that I'm telling you your operators should be doing. And the first and foremost is weekly accountability calls with their management team. Weekly, I'm going to repeat, weekly accountability calls with your management team. I have been out there and had to negotiate contracts with third-party management companies, and they don't want to do weekly. They want to do monthly. And I've had to negotiate down management companies to do bi-weekly, and every once in a while I got someone to agree to do weekly for at least a startup period for 6 to 9 months. I said, I have to have weekly calls. This is a new property. We're going through transition. I will agree to go bi-weekly at a certain point when we hit certain benchmarks, and no fewer than bi-weekly calls. But what I'm telling everybody is that operators should be meeting with their management team on every single property on a weekly basis. So if you can get it from your third-party management companies, get it. If you're self-managing or you aspire to self-manage, you should not be letting more than a week go by without talking to your teams about what's going on with the property. And I hope I've hammered that point in enough. The next thing that it seems self-evident, it seems obvious, but I actually have to admit that during the webinar that I first did 4 years ago, I didn't say this. I actually said the opposite, and I'm editing myself. I'm changing my perspective has changed. I'm changing my recommendations to you guys. Visit your properties often and always unannounced. Do not tell them you're coming. And I said the exact opposite. So I am pivoting, guys, because I have learned. I was very big in the beginning, and I remember why I said this. I said it's very, I got very into the interpersonal relationship that you should be developing with your management companies, and there should be a atmosphere of trust, mutual trust and respect. And if you're showing up at your properties unannounced all the time, it's sending the message that you don't trust your property manager, and that's not the right foot to start off at. I mean, I remember saying all of this, and I believed it at the time. And now what I'm telling you, after being in this business since 2012 and having as many deals as I've had and have gone through property managers, I'm telling you right now, visit your properties unannounced every time. I'm saying this that we even do this with our own staff. So we have shown up, Chris and I have shown up at properties that we are self-managing with people that we have handpicked to run our properties, and we've flown into the market and shown up without telling them. It is so important, and I'm sorry if that does create some type of atmosphere or context of distrust, but the bottom line is, whether you're hiring these people as self-managers or whether you're paying out a fee to a third-party management company, they're there to do a job. And it's your responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to yourself, to your residents, to your partners, to your investors, that you know what's going on at all times, and that because you are doing unannounced visits, you will see what usually goes on a daily basis. When you're announcing your visit, everyone is going to clean things. They're going to clean their act up. If they're behind in anything, they're going to fix it. And one of the first things that we noticed, and was really a shocker to us, in both instances, this was a shocker, and it was the same thing. It happened on a property we were self-managing, and it happened on a property that we ultimately took over because we're now 100% integrated. And we showed up unannounced. And what the first thing that we saw, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me, was trash on the grounds. Trash on the grounds. Like, not acceptable at all. Like, first thing, 101 that you should be doing, your team should be doing every single morning is walking the grounds and cleaning them up. In the morning, not 4 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning. Our own team had trash on the grounds. I will tell you that that property manager and maintenance supervisor is no longer with us, not because of that incident. We did not terminate people over that one incident, but that was a red flag, and it led to other things. And ultimately that team was not a good team for us, and they've since gone. Our visit to our property that was being third party managed, we were horrified. This was now, I want to say we were through the fall, and it was almost kind of getting into the cold season. We had spent a ton of money earlier in that spring, summer, doing landscaping. We had done a whole new landscaping project and spent a lot of money. And we show up, and it was horrifying that everything was overgrown. The weeds were actually grown up so high you couldn't see our sign. We were mortified. I mean, we are experienced operators. We really are. And this particular one property, we had let it go too long since our last visit. And we showed up unannounced, and we're sitting here struggling on this property with occupancy, and we can't figure out why their conversion rate is so low, and we can't, to getting people leased up, and, people are not showing up to appointments. And then we show up on the property, and we're like, well, this is why we're not getting any action. People are driving through and turning around and leaving and not coming for their tours. It was mortifying. So, I don't want to just pound this point too hard, but I don't care if you're hurting people's feelings by showing up unannounced. You need to do it on a regular basis. You need to make sure that the basics are being taken care of on a daily basis, never mind all the intricacies of operating. So please visit your properties. If you can't do it, get someone in, get boots on the ground that can do it for you. But someone outside of that team, that management team, needs to be getting their eyes on a property unannounced on a regular basis. Okay. So very quickly, let me just say, and then we're going to go into the details. I rearranged the order. Okay, so right now it's marketing is the number one, and I'm going to go into the details why. Then we have delinquency management, renewal management. So number one is about getting the residents. 2 and 3 is about getting them to pay on time and keeping the good residents. 4, expense management, super obvious, but I'll talk about some details about that. And reputation and community management, I'll go into. That could actually be one pillar. I broke it up into 2, but they're very much intertwined. The order of priority is basically what I'm saying is it's the most important. Yes, reputation and community management is super important, but if you sometimes lag in that area because you don't have time to do the things I'm going to recommend, it's not going to tank your operations. But if you don't do the first 4 in the order that I'm telling you, if you don't do them, you are going to have a problem successfully operating your properties. So let's go into the first one, and it's prospective resident marketing. Okay, it's how you get your tenants to lease up in your properties. And this is one of the pull the curtain back. Oh my God, they're not doing what they need to do. This was one of the telltale moments that we realized how much some third-party companies are not doing. When we first took over our first deal, we took over one property in Warrensburg, Missouri, which is a very tertiary market. And we took it over because that management company tanked very, very soon after our acquisition, and we didn't have another management company to go to. So it was kind of like, all right, we're forced to take over and we're going to jump in and take over. And we did it. And we were ready to do it, frankly, because Chris and I had been operating this company for a while. So we were kind of like getting ready for this type of thing anyway. So when we took that over, it was kind of, we knew it was going to be a, excuse my language, a shit show. And we had a lot to clean up and a lot to do. So we did it. And we started honing in on our systems and figuring out things that worked and didn't work, and started comparing our self-management property results to our third-party management company results. Two things came up right away, and it wasn't this. This was one of the hidden things that we didn't realize. It wasn't the marketing piece. That was one of the, oh my God, I'm seeing behind the curtain. The two obvious things that we did better, and we realized that the management companies needed more guidance and you had to stay on top of them more often. The first one was delinquency management, and I'll get into the whys of why we thought, why we do a better job. The first one was delinquency management, and the second one was expense management. Now, expense management is really easy because you can control all your expenses. You don't have, with third-party management, guys, let me tell you what happens. They go and get a vendor. They may get the best price. They may give you 3 invoices and give you the choice of the best price, but they're getting a VIG on top of that price. So every time you're using third-party management, they're getting a cut of everything every contractor is doing on your property. The amount of, I call, financial leakage that goes on because of that is pretty substantial. All I can say for people who have asset managers, who are asset managers that are working with third-party companies, negotiate that VIG down. Don't, acknowledge it up front. It's happening. Negotiate that VIG down so they're taking as little as possible. And you really got to keep their feet to the fire when it comes to getting the best quotes from vendors. But delinquency management, I'll go into on the next screen about what we do and what the third-party management companies need to do better. But this was the first one, the marketing piece was the first time that we really realized, wow, we didn't know. And there was almost no way for us to actually realize that we didn't know they were doing such a bad job in this area. So again, you can get your property management to do better, by being a better asset manager and forcing their feet to the fire when it comes to this. So what most managers are doing, property managers are doing, and we're all doing it, right? We have to get out on, and we got to market. It's it's the apartments.com and RentPath and all these different platforms to get your property out there. And everybody's doing the same thing. Great, wonderful. And so they convince you to get the best package possible, get the gold instead of the silver. The gold is the best one. It's the most expensive one, but it's the best one. So you buy all these marketing packages with these different platforms. You get the word out there. Maybe if you're in a great market and there's a lot of demand and things are going perfectly, they don't have to do much. The leads are just coming in. They're filling up the units. But when you're in a market that's tougher, for whatever reason, either macro reasons or micro reasons, and people aren't knocking down your door, and you start seeing that, well, where are the leads and why aren't we filling up and why are we still at 89 and why can't we get to 91%? And they've convinced you to go to the gold package and you've done that and there's still no changes. You know what everybody goes to? And I fell victim to it too. All right, we either need to cut back on our rent increases, reduce our rent, or let's start offering incentives. Let's start knocking, 50% off the first month. And so you go to that automatically. And we thought that was the right thing to do. We were taking the necessary steps to generate the leads that we didn't seem to be getting, or to generate the conversions. We were getting the leads, but we couldn't seem to get them converted into lease ups. And then having now self-managed and working through trial and error, we have not even perfected. I'm not saying we've perfected this yet at all. But what I'm saying, we have come to realize they are really, really bad at follow-up. You get the leads flow in. Then you have to ask your management company, what's next? What do you do when the leads come in? How do you track the leads? Where are you recording where the leads are coming in? How are you responding? By what method? Who's doing it? Do you have virtual assistants? Is it your own team? Is it AI? AI is out there now. Everyone, wants to use AI now to do certain things when it comes to property management. More importantly than the who, how quickly are you doing it? We found out that leads were not being responded to for days. Forget it, they're gone. You need to respond to your leads within a day, like within an 8-hour time period. You need to acknowledge that. You better have reached out to them. Your first contact could be an acknowledgement. We got your email, we got your text, we got your whatever, acknowledging, hey, we got it, and we're reaching out to you. You better reach out to them within 24 hours. The amount of leads that were not followed up with our third property managers was astounding. But here's how we found out it was even happening, though. Because of what we were doing on our own properties, we ourselves had to start monitoring and tracking the leads, and staying on top of our own staff to return the calls. And we were like maniacal with them. I mean, we had these tracking sheets, and how many hours did it take to respond, and what did you say, and when did you reach out and actually speak to them? I mean, it was like crazy, and we're still working on it. We call it the RTLS system. We coined it a phrase, and it's real-time leasing system. And we have tweaked what we were doing. We started out using virtual assistants in the Philippines to make the initial contacts with the texting. And then we found out, I'm sorry, more than the initial, we started out using them, making the initial contact, and also then the follow-up call to try to make the appointment. And we didn't experience success. And we were like, okay, we'll use the virtual assistants to do the texting, but then we have to have a more personal touch to do the reach out. So now we were doing the virtual assistant was there to immediately do the text, and then they flipped over the lead to our staff, who immediately had a call or email or text, but be more personal. Hi, this is Carrie. I am the manager at such and such property. Can you speak at 1 o'clock? I'll answer your questions, blah, blah, blah. So it had to be more personal. We went through rounds and rounds and rounds of different things that we can do to help process those leads and convert our leads into lease ups. And we were doing this on our own properties, and we know that our property management companies were not doing it on theirs. And you know why we know? Because we know how hard it was. The work that we put into this, and that we're still working on, and we're still tweaking things. We have actually figured out, and this is, I'm telling you this from this angle. I know property management companies aren't doing this. I just know it. We figured out in one market that we're in, just one, it doesn't work in any of the other markets. In one market that we're in, more than apartments.com or RentPath or any of those other marketing platforms, Facebook Marketplace is generating the most qualified. I say qualified because in our other markets, Facebook is not producing qualified leads at all. But in this one market, it is. So we're like, okay, then in this one market team, you are going to pound Facebook on a daily basis. And that's what we're going to concentrate on. I can promise you that this self-analysis and this trial and error, and this doesn't work, let's do this, let's try this, is not going on with the third-party management companies. So my recommendation for those of you that are operating with third-party management companies, you got to just keep asking the questions. You have to hold them accountable. Tell me what you're doing. How are you tracking your leads? What is your method of communication? How quickly are you responding? Get them to answer you. Get them to provide the plan, and get them to track what they're doing so you can measure the results. It is absolutely key. It is the number one thing everyone has to concentrate on. I say occupancy cures all ills, because you could be the best expense manager out there and drive your expenses as low as they go. If you are not driving income, if you are not maintaining occupancy, the house of cards falls down. It is like literally the linchpin. So yeah, that's a big one. Moving on to the next one. Going the wrong way. Delinquency management. Okay. Delinquency management. How did we know we were doing so much better? Okay, I've been managing for, asset managing for a long time. I will tell you, in general, my third-party management companies at best were maintaining a 3 to 4% delinquency rate. Okay, there was always 3 to 4% delinquency running on a monthly basis. Some were much worse than that. The good ones were 3 to 4%. Our company, Sharpline Communities, is operating at, I'm going to say 2%, some 1 to 2%. Why are we doing so much better? And let me tell you, I mean, this is one of those pieces where, as a asset manager, for those of you that are working with your third-party management companies, you can drill this into them, and they should be doing this, and they can do it, and it's not out of the realm for you expect them to do this. Okay. This is what we do. It's a really simple formula, and this is the results that we're getting. Okay, so obviously you guys know, you've heard of this, right? 5 days, after 5 days they're late, you post the notice. By the 15th day, we're now, if we don't get the rent, we're now sending the file to our legal office. So we're now starting the eviction process. Excuse me, there are no exceptions to that. There are no, let me repeat, there are no exceptions to that. 5 days we post the notice, the 16th day it goes to legal. People come in, they want to work out a payment plan. Sure, no problem. Is it going to prevent us from sending it to the legal office? Absolutely not. If you follow through with your payment plan, we stop the proceeding. If you don't follow through, hopefully we're on the calendar by that part. There is no exceptions to the rule. We do it every time. The only time we are unable to do that is on our Freddie Mac deals. Some of you may know this and are experiencing it. There is COVID language in the loans that have still to this day exist on their loans, and we are unable to start any proceeding until a full 30 days has passed. So your lease agreements may say 5 days late, 15 days you're in default, and you can start the eviction proceeding, but with the Freddie Mac loan, you cannot do it, and you have to wait 30 days. And sure enough, one of our buildings with the Freddie Mac loan does have the highest, we have the most delinquency challenges on that building, because we have to wait a full 30 days to go into legal, to send our file to legal. Now, in between doing what I think are those very simple steps, so, again, you have to make sure that your management companies, no exceptions. Yes, it may mean that you have more, higher legal bills, but, if your leases provide for it, you can also, if that resident pays up and ends up, not getting evicted, you can charge them for those legal costs if your lease, permits that. But here's the work that you have to make sure your property management company is doing. And again, we got maniacal about this with our own team. And during our weekly accountability calls, we made them report their tracking on, we use Appfolio. Some of you may be familiar with that particular financial platform. So there's an ability to track your delinquent residents and to comment. There's a comment section in the delinquency report next to the residents. If we didn't see a comment in there every week about what the most recent effort that manager made with, trying to get delinquency removed, we'd go ballistic. So that means what they need to be doing is calling the residents, texting the residents. Appfolio provides for texting through their system. Knocking on the door at some point if it's really late. Like, you have to be doing things on a daily basis to get those people in, to work out their plans, payment plans if you're willing to take it, or to pay up in full. But it's a daily effort. It's not, and it's a combination of posting your notices, sending to legal, and doing all that other work in between. I mean, it takes work, people. We didn't get down to a 1 to 2% delinquency rate, which I happen to think is phenomenal. I'm in this business, again, since 2012. I never experienced it before now. I fought with Chris, I can't tell you, because when we first took, this is a little digression, I'm giving kudos to Chris right now. When there was when we first took over properties and we started growing very quickly and we were buying up properties, you know, in 24 months, we bought like 13 properties. He kept underwriting, and this is only when we only first started self-managing, and he kept underwriting the pro forma, and he kept putting like 2 to 3%, like I want to say maybe 2.5%. And I kept on saying, can you please bump that up to 3.5, 4? Like, why are you putting that so low? It's not realistic. And he, before me, had the vision that we were going to do better. And he goes, no, no, no. It's going to be our reality. We are going to be under 3%, and we're really under 2% at this point. So that's the important part of delinquency management. And you can be on top of your property management teams and get them to do what they need to do. Like I'm convinced of that, but it's about consistency. Okay. Renewal management. So we're talking about, how do you attract your residents? How do you get your residents to pay on time? How do you keep your residents? Okay. Now we're on to, how do we keep our residents? One, let's be consistent with our communications. Okay. We start our communication with our residents 120 days in advance of their lease expiring. And you got to do that because no one's thinking about it yet, and they don't want to answer the questions yet. So you have to start tapping them with your texts and your emails. What are your thoughts? Do you know yet? Blah, blah, blah. 90 days, they haven't answered you, you do it again. By 60 days, now it's critical, okay? Because one, you need to know if they're coming, if they're leaving or staying, because you want to get into that unit. Please, guys, don't wait until the move out to do your first inspection. The move out inspection is important because obviously you assess whether or not there are damages that are going to be withheld from the deposit. But you need to get in there earlier. When you're operating multiple properties, and I pray that all of you are either passively invested or operating multiple properties in your career at one time, you're going to have a lot of people that are moving out of your units at one time across your portfolio, right? You need some notice on these properties to understand what kind of turn expenses are coming up in a particular month, you know? So you want to get in there at least 60 days in advance and take a tour of that unit. So we took the step of actually putting in our leases that if you do not notify us, if you're moving or if you're staying, by the 60th day prior to the expiration of your lease, you're getting banged with $250 fee. It's called failure to notify fee. So you should see how people are reacting to that now when they see that. So they're more than happy to pick up the phone and tell us what they're doing on the, 70 days out or something like that. So that is really important, just to understand what's happening in the upcoming months and what type of turn costs you may be looking at. Now, ideally, you want to keep the residents that you like, because turn costs are a big factor in your expense line, and you want to keep that minimized as much as possible. So what are you doing? What are you doing to keep your residents? At this point, we've templatized a lot of things. One of the things that we've templatized is our what do we call it? Our renewal menu. I think we call it our renewal menu, where we have a menu of upgrades that a resident can choose from and that we offer to them, because ultimately, ideally, hopefully, with every renewal, you're pushing the rent a little bit or a lot, depending on, depending on the property and what your business plan is. So you would like to be offering people something in exchange for that. So we've come up with different packages that people can choose from, that usually makes them, feel like they're getting something for that rent push. So we do that. A very big piece, guys. And again, not everything gets done all of the time consistently, but it's important to be aware and try to get this information consistently, tracking why people are leaving. Like we have an A property right now. This is actually a topic, an issue that came up on one of our weekly calls. It came up 2 weeks ago because one of our A asset properties, we just closed out the year for 2023. So we're looking at a lot of different types of reporting and what annually happens annually. And we had an 80% turn rate on an A property. And I'm like, what the hell is that all about? We have other A properties. We have A properties kind of scattered throughout the portfolio. And that is not normal in an A property. This particular property had a very high turn rate in year one, and totally understood why. We came in there, we were pushing rents, we were taking away certain things. They had cable that was for free. We said, no, we gotta unwind that. Everyone needs to pay for their own cable. We added on more fees than the prior owner had. So yeah, when you shake the tree like that, get ready, there's going to be some large turnover, and we knew it. But it's 2-3 years later, and we have an 80% turn rate. And I asked my staff, I go, why do we have that turn rate? Nobody can answer me. I see, guys, we're self-managing. It's not like just because we're self-managers, everyone has the answers and it's perfect. And nobody had the answer. I'm like, we need to go get that answer. So the past is past. We can't get it now. But I said, I need it templatized. I need you to tell me that there's a report that Appfolio can generate. And if it can't be generated, then we're going to create it. And we need to make sure that we're understanding why people are moving out. It matters. We need to figure out what's going on that property to reduce that turn rate, because that is leading to turn expenses that we shouldn't be experiencing, not on an A property, right? So that's an important piece. Go after that information, get your property managers to go after that information. And then just be aware of the fact that there is always a balance when you're doing a renewal of pushing rent. You want to push it as much as you can. It also, it depends on where you're starting from. Are they paying very, very low rent, or, and you really need to push, or are they in the middle somewhere? But the point is, when you're considering pushing rent, it's always a case-by-case basis. Is this a good tenant? Is this not a good tenant? Do we want him to leave? Do we want him to stay? And you're comparing what you're trying to get for what that turn cost is going to be. If you got a lot of turn costs and you're trying to keep it down, this may be a resident that you're not going to push the rent so high, and just get a little push and call it a day, keep them in there, and not have to deal with the turn costs. So, all right, you always want to be contemplating that. You always want your management company to be talking these things through with you as you go through these items during your weekly accountability call. Expense management. All right, easy peasy. When we took over, we were like, yay, this is one of the best parts of taking over. We can control expenses, and that is absolutely true. But for those of you that are dealing with your third-party management companies, doesn't mean that you can't bust chops. You gotta, again, don't worry about hurting feelings. You need to squeeze out of them as much juice as possible for what you're paying. And I'm sure you're paying a lot, as I recall, like it's not cheap. So be aggressive when it comes to the third-party vendors that are being used. Be aggressive, make your management companies, not present just their friends or the people that they're most comfortable working with. Have them, you want them to test that pricing against all the other vendors that are out there. You make them get 3 quotes. Once you do get comfortable with vendors, so you will land a landscaping contract and a snow removal contract, and there's going to be certain HVAC vendors that you work with all the time. Even a self-management right now, we don't have everyone on our team is not HVAC certified, so we are working with third-party vendors a lot. You get comfortable with them, right? They get to know you, you get to know them, everything's nice. You've got to test them every once in a while. You got to put their feet to the fire and make sure that a year and a half later, they're not too comfortable in their relationship with you and charging you too much when someone else is charging a more reasonable price. So it's just about not getting too comfortable and always double checking and confirming that you're getting the best prices all of the time. Obviously, if you are self-managing, one of the important things to be doing is trying to do as much as possible in-house and not utilizing third-party vendors. You are asked the property management team that your property management company, for those of you that have third-party managers, what you're asking them is, do we really have to hire a vendor for that? Cannot your salaried people take care of this item? Those are the kind of questions that you're asking, because every time they third party out, remember, you're paying that invoice, they're getting a VIG. So you want payroll, you're already paying out payroll to these people because they're passing through their payroll fees to you. So in essence, you're paying their payroll. you want their payroll to cover as much as possible. Water sewer expense line is like the bane of my existence. One of your most expensive lines everywhere except for New York, right, Joseph? Everywhere except New York. Water sewer that expense is through the roof. So you really need to just pay attention, make sure your property management companies or your own team are doing preventative maintenance inspections, checking for the leaking faucets, the running toilets, things underground when it comes to leaking. The only way you're going to know about it is if there's seepage, or if there's a spike in your utility bill. That's another way you find out kind of after the fact. But this is a line you have to pay attention to. Installing aerators, water conservation things, right? We just found out we're in a county in one of our markets, and this is how serious the water expense line can be. Okay. Last year in this building, water sewer expense was $54,000. Okay. Come the new year, I do a new budget. I up that number a little bit because nothing stays the same. We're on track right now, having looked back, we're on track for to pay out 80,000 in annualized. 54 to 80. What the hell happened? So, did you do your inspections, and do we have running toilets, this, or they're leaking pipes, blah, 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 blah. No, the answer is no, no, no. They did all of that. No, no, no. They go and research with the county. The county is raising water sewer. It's the county. They have just increased unusually large spike in water sewer charges. So now we're forced to, okay, well, we can't control that. And so now it's about, okay, what water cost saving things can we do? Do we look into, low flow toilets? That's kind of expensive. We've done that before, but maybe we need to do this because we're about to lose 25,000 off of our bottom line. Really, the bane of my existence is water sewer. Okay. Revisit your RUBs, guys, your chargebacks. And I'm going to relate this back to water sewer. Okay. RUBs is when you charge back for certain expenses. And most of the times it's your water sewer. Very few buildings have individually metered units where your residents are paying water sewer directly to the county. Usually one bill comes to the owner pays it, then they charge back that fee to the residents. There's different ways to charge back. You can charge back by doing an equation, which you take, the amount of square footage of every unit, and punch it into an equation. Appfolio actually does it for you. And it says, okay, 1 bedrooms pay this much, 2 bedrooms pay this much, 3 bedrooms pay this much of every single bill. Like you put in the bill amount for the month, and they calculate out what the 1s, 2s, and 3s pay. It's very nice. And because you're putting in the actual bill, your chargeback that you're charging the residents is covering your whole water sewer bill. Yay. But a lot of times people don't have that in place, and they have what's called a flat fee. So they may charge $25 for a 1 bedroom, $50 for a 2 bedroom, $65 for a 3 bedroom, and they just do flat charges across the board. That's okay. It's been done. People do it because that's what's common in the market, so they don't want to shake up the market, whatever. My point is if your management company is doing that, or if that's what you're doing, here's the equation that you have to look at. When you look at what you have received in a particular month for your water sewer chargeback, your RUBs, and you look at your expense that you paid out in that particular month, are you capturing at least 70% of that expense? In other words, are you recovering at least 70% of what you paid out? That's the goal. Okay, so keep that in mind. You want to be trying to get to 70 to 80% of what you paid out. If you're only at 40%, your flat fee is not high enough. You're not covering your bill substantially enough. Okay. And then the last thing is, okay, it's CapEx, right? So what you want to be asking your management companies is, are they correctly dropping CapEx expenses below your NOI line, your net operating line, okay, your net operating income line? CapEx expenses, for the beginners out there, CapEx expenses are not operating expenses. CapEx expenses are unusual expenses that are not part of operations. They're usually involved with rehabs. I'm talking about purchases of your equipment, like appliances or big rehab projects that you may be doing inside the units, and certainly outside. When those expenses are incurred, they need to be recorded, not in your repair and management line, but below the line. It's called below your net operating income line. NOI. You guys will learn this term if you don't know it now. The issue is sometimes management companies get lazy and they throw too much in the R&M line, and they don't bifurcate enough and throw the correct items below the line. So I'm using, for example, when you're turning a unit. Here's the example I'm going to leave you with. And for the more seasoned people who understand this, I hope this lands on you. Okay, so you have a management company and they're turning units. And what I happen to have seen with one of our management companies, what they were doing is which was very nice, they had a section of their report that showed turn costs. And so they had, it showed like all the different things involved in the turn. And what they would do is they would include what was considered an ordinary expense above the line, and they would drop below the line the CapEx. So when they were buying their appliances for the units and stuff like that, they put it below the line. Correct. Okay, great. I said to them, you are including all of the turn labor above the line for the turn units. And they said yes. And I said, why are you doing that? Well, that's not a CapEx expense. And then they gave me a definition, an accounting definition of what a CapEx expense is. So here's what I'm going to say. Here's the control you have as self-management. And here's where you got to sometimes really bust your property manager's chops. They said, so I can drop the materials below the line. I can't drop the labor. And I said, drop the labor below the line. And they said, oh, we can't do that. Well, I said, yes, you can. Because if I get in trouble with like the taxing authorities, the IRS, you're not getting in trouble. It's me. So yeah, you can do it. And here's why you can do it. If you hired a turn company to do your turns, let's say you had a huge rehab project and you were turning 30 units at once and you hired a turn company, they would be giving you invoicing for that 30 units. And you would take that invoicing for 30 units and you drop it below the line because it's a big rehab expense. It's all rehab. You're not bifurcating that invoice and saying, okay, out of all their invoices, I'm going to take every invoice and I'm going to put their labor above the line and I'm going to drop their materials below the line. You're not doing that. You're not doing that. So I was basically telling my management company, if I'm not going to do it with the turn company, why would I do it just because we're using your labor? Drop the labor below the line. So just a little example of how they're working for you. They can do it if you ask them to do it. Make them do that. Be very aware of CapEx being appropriately charged below the line, because if you don't, your NOI will get destroyed. Your NOI is important to assess the value of your building. Okay, moving on. I got to move on. I know I'm reputation. Okay, these two I'm going to go really quick. Reputation management. Okay, the 5 and 6 goes together. What does the community know about your property? You guys will not, and even us as maniacal self-managers, we sometimes fall behind the 8 ball with these last 2 things. Doesn't mean though it's not important. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be paying attention to it as much as you possibly can. Get on Google and look at those damn reviews, okay? Look at those reviews and manage them as much as possible. Respond to the negative views. There'll be plenty of them because there's always disgruntled residents. Elicit as much as possible. Solicit the good reviews. When you've done something good and they're like, wow, thank you so much for that. Hey, would you mind popping into, and putting a good review online? Let me tell you something. If for those of you that syndicate deals, your investors are doing the Google search. I have had investors call me out on properties and say, have you guys seen some of your reviews lately? I mean, it is no joke. Like, and by the way, all of your prospective tenants, one of the first thing they're doing is going online and Googling the apartments and looking at the reviews. So Yes, I labeled it as number 5, and I said it wasn't as important as number 1, but it's still really important. So really manage the reviews online. It really matters. And then the last one is community management. We're in this business. We actually are a service industry, right? We are serving residents of our communities. So let's make an effort. Yes, you want these properties to operate and generate income for yourselves and your families and your JV partners and your investors. You want to be making the LPs of the world want to be making passive income. I get it. But at the end of the day, what is it all? It all trickles down to the core service that you're providing is a community and a home for your residents. So make an effort to make this a community and a home for your residents and not just a unit. So do things like what we do. We do a welcome gift. We're doing the quarterly newsletters. We have templates. I templatized it finally, and I've made sure that every property manager has a templatized newsletter, and then they can just pop in and update the different information. And we do community events, and that's the fun part, by the way. Like, that's the fun part that your management team should have fun with, is the trick or treats and the holiday hot chocolates. And that's the stuff that hopefully your management team and or the people that you're hiring in your self-management team, that they actually take some joy in doing, because that's the fun part of operating these buildings. I'm done. Sorry. I think I went over. I apologize.
Not at all, Krista. That was
And I talked
amazing.
fast too.
No, yeah, actually, I'm sure everyone was enjoying listening to you. Personally, I'm so glad to hear about your perspective being evolved, and now you have two different unique views from both perspectives, like being a third party asset manager, third party managers, and then doing a vertically integrated property management as well. So I'm sure everybody learned a lot from that. And I think that you just gave us like a blueprint of how to effectively asset manage step by step. Like, I feel like I gotta go deeper and gotta bring you back and maybe do another session in more detail. But overall,
I know I had to cover a lot of stuff quickly. So,
but it was still great. It was like the most, I think, important essence, and you touched upon this high level, like great points. So really appreciate your sharing. And how can people reach out to you? I just saw you put your email address up there. And she's also on Facebook. Reach out to her. And what is your Facebook handle, Krista?
Krista Testani.
Okay, so look for
Yeah.
Krista Testani, message her, get connected, ask questions. She's amazing, absolutely amazing. Does anyone have a question at this point? I think I saw one question before. You could unmute yourself if you have questions and ask the question now.
I have a question, Krista. When you visit your properties unannounced, what are some of the most important things that you're looking to inspect? What are you looking for? Like, what,
Well, obviously, I mean, the first and foremost is you walk the grounds, right? Yeah, I mean, you need to just make sure. And then again, to me, that's such a minimal least that they can do, right? Is picking up the garbage off the ground. And again, in those two instances, it was heartbreaking to see it. Then once you're in the office, you're in the office. So obviously you want to, make sure that everybody's there, that's supposed to be there, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then, at that point, the element of surprise is over. So now it's just a matter of, now you're in the office and now you're just there to ask whatever questions that you want to ask and dig into. So
you're looking at the general, like, are they maintaining the property from a aesthetic perspective, to make sure it's clean, there's no dog poop on the lawn,
and what I'm saying is that's such a big deal, and that is such a big deal. Like, that's the point. You come asking, you come with a scheduled appointment. They're straightening up the leasing office. They're getting the guys to pick up if you don't already have a company that's doing it, they're getting the guys to pick everything up. I mean, it's going to look pristine. It just is. And then you go and think, wow, this is awesome. But then the other, 364 days or whatever, 90 days, however often you visit, if they're letting it go, if the leasing offices, I remember being very disappointed. I was really disappointed. Again, it's just a telltale sign. We had a manager. This, by the way, is a staff person. This was not property management. This was our own staff person. And I walk in and the kitchen was disgusting. The kitchen and the bathroom in the leasing office was disgusting. Like, opened up the microwave and there was, that person is no longer with us. Again, it's one of many reasons. I didn't fire her on the spot because she was a slob, but that is a sign. If you could not take pride in how the leasing office looks, which is the first impression for all of your prospects, holy crap, are you taking pride in anything else that you're doing? So it really is, again, like once you're there, you're there. And so there's not much that you can discover, but you can learn a lot from what do the grounds look like and what does that leasing office look like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else?
Hey, Tameka. So I was gonna ask, are we allowed to like door knock a tenant and just ask how they're doing, how they think they've been treated? Is there any rules against that legally?
Oh, as the owners of the company?
Yes.
Basically you want to get feedback from the residents about how the management team is doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you totally can. And I got to tell you guys, I was against it in the beginning, again, for that more of a, I don't want to hurt my manager's feelings and create any sense of distrust. But hell, you could walk your units and slip a survey under the door, and ask people to answer a survey, check off boxes of whether or not they feel the management team is good, bad, and go back and collect those surveys. I completely shifted my attitude about companies and worrying about that piece. Like, you need to test and you need to encapsulate somehow, figure out, get some type of result, feedback of, is this team doing a good job or not? So no, I'm not against you guys. There's nothing illegal about it, saying, you may want to do it in a written form or whatever, because you may startle someone who's knocking on the door, but maybe you won't. Maybe you just say, hey, I'm the owner and I'm inspecting the property today. And do you have 3 minutes to give me feedback on, what management is doing? Sure.
Thank you.
And Mecca, we also have an experience of actually, as an owner, doing a ghost shopping type of thing, calling our own property management office, checking how long they're not picking, how long after the first rings they're picking the phone, or how they react to our inquiries about units and things like that. So that was one way to kind of just check if property management company is doing well or not.
Thank you too. Thanks.
Yeah. Do that. Do that.
All right. Anyone else? Jared, I think I saw a question from you too, or no?
Hey, yeah. Hi, Krista.
Hi, Jared.
I did want to know how many people are on your property management team.
Oh gosh, I think we're up to 30.
Okay, and 30 can handle 1,200 units.
Yeah, are we
Pretty-
short? Is that a question about whether or not we're short-staffed anywhere? I mean, yeah, I mean, I could tell you in Ohio, we're looking to staff up a little bit more. But yeah, right now the 30, I mean, that is a combination of the PMs. We have PMs, we have maintenance staff, both senior and assistants. And on some of the properties, it's we have assistant PMs or we call them leasing agents. But yeah, right now it's around 30.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, how do you vet your PM? Do you have a new PM? Do you have a probationary period, or
Well,
how would
all
you test them?
employees, all of our employees, and maintenance as well, is a 90-day probation period.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the
Thank you.
hiring piece, guys, the biggest reservation that Chris and I had, me in particular, about self-managing. And because we were scaling so quickly, we knew it wasn't just self-managing one property. It was going to be self-managing, 5, 10, 15, because we knew we were on this very fast trajectory to accumulate properties. And my biggest concern was the hiring process and what that would be like. And I no holds barred here. Being transparent, it is brutal. It is brutal finding good help. Brutal. But I mean, this is the profession we chose, so I'm trying to do it with a smile. But that part is brutal, and I don't even do that part, by the way. I don't even do the hiring, but it is brutal. A lot of people, you go through the vetting process, you think you landed someone, they're a no-show, they never show up to work. We just hired someone, and they called in sick and they haven't shown, they haven't come back nor provided a doctor's note. 2 days, and they're already out sick with no doctor's note and no communication. I'm like, all right, okay. So I guess we don't have that one, I mean, it is just, but the satisfaction that we do get, as much as there's a lot of, turnstiles type of stuff going on, when you land the good people and they stay and they become part of your culture and you're training them up, I mean, it's that much more satisfying because it takes that much to find good help. I think that's why that phrase is such a popular one. It is not easy to find good help.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have
Going.
a quick
Oh, yeah.
question.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Krista, thanks for presenting. This is actually such good information. So now for me, I am focused right now in this moment in my investing career is much smaller units.
Right.
So like right now I have sub 10. I'm looking to get between 10 and 15 or maybe sub 20 for my next acquisitions. How would you I'm trying to pick what you've been talking about, like on the larger scale, and how to apply that to smaller units, because some things don't translate. At least I don't think that they translate to smaller units, because like just one vacancy will have, a much larger vacancy rate for the portfolio, right? Because you have a smaller amount of units. Let's say even having like a waiting list, it doesn't really work when you have 10 units, right? Like or at least in my thought process for that. So what are some of the best tips do you think for managing a smaller portfolio and keeping your third party management like kind of feet to the fire in a way that makes sense for the scale of your portfolio when it's smaller?
Okay, so you are third party managing. You're not self-managing.
Yes, for third party managing.
Yeah. So how many units do you have altogether? Right now?
14, 3 of them I do self-manage, but the others are managed because they're in Pennsylvania, and it
With
will
one
be harder
management
to self.
company?
Yeah, both of them, yeah, 2 buildings, both of them are with one management company that my partner loves, and so it would be very hard to break off from them.
He loves the management company?
Yes, and they
Yeah.
also manage. He also has other properties that they also manage. So I stepped into partnership with their team that was pre-existing.
Yeah.
They do some things good, but it's still third-party property management. So it's still like those pieces where I feel are lacking, and I feel like I'm fighting by myself against some of the
Well,
things.
because now there's a pre-existing relationship there, and you're in a difficult
Yeah.
position because your unit count is lower,
Yeah.
and that really takes away from the bargaining power. Because they're only going to make so much, they're charging you more because the unit count is so much less, right? So their fees are probably higher because they need to make money. So they're only making money off of 20 units instead of 200. So everything's going to be higher. I'm sure their percentage is higher. I'm sure their VIGs are higher. So that is a really difficult position. And for 20 units, I mean, do you have any type of check-in calls? Is there anything that I said right now that is in play at
No.
all with?
Yeah, I've tried
Yeah.
to get the calls on a more consistent basis, and I've definitely, like you said, got a major pushback with that. But that was already a company that was established with my partner before I even
That's
jumped
the
in.
problem.
So yeah.
Nicole,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if you shoot me an email and you want to just, I don't want to, I mean, this has been a long call. You want to have a separate call?
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, shoot
Thank
me an
you.
email. You have, see that? Shoot me an email and then you
Yeah.
can give me your phone number. And I think we just need to talk offline because I got to talk through some stuff with you. I don't want to keep everybody on. You're in
Thank you.
a difficult
Appreciate it.
position. I need to kind of think through some strategies.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
All right, great, thank you. I think it's been a long enough, but trust me, it felt like it was only 30 minutes, but it's already 8:30. So I'll
Sorry,
thank
did
you,
I go much
everyone.
longer than I was supposed to?
not
Yosef,
at
you
all.
didn't even give me, I don't think you gave me a timeline.
Not at all, not at all. That's
Okay.
why I didn't give you a timeline. I just
Okay.
wanted to for you to own all the time, okay?
Okay.
But thank you everyone for joining tonight. We learned a ton of good stuff today from Krista, and thank you, Krista, for such a great presentation. And like I said, I'll definitely bring you back for more perspective on other things, okay?
You got it. Thanks, Yosef. Take care, everyone. Thanks for
Krista,
joining.
so much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Krista.
Eric.
Thank you,
Take care,
everyone.
guys.
Good night. Good night.
Night.
Night.